Good evening and welcome to 365 Days of Amazing Stories with Theo O'Meara. Here we are on day 29, and I'm going to continue stories from Fire on the Mountain, Living with Wildfire in Big Sur. So, I left the story off where Jesse, Wakar, and Aaron had come up the hill in, I think, 7411, which is basically a Ford dually 4x4, has a small water tank on it and a pump and fire hose and a bunch of other equipment. And Jesse and Wakar and Scott went to deal with a oak tree that was on fire that had fallen on one of Scott Rayner's buildings. Aaron and I went off together and went down onto my property just to check, make sure everything was out. As we did, we found that one little puff of smoke that I had left unattended had blossomed into a fire and was coming around the corner. So we met again, all of us, and I tried to persuade Jesse to back 7411 down to where we could run some hoses and get some water on the fire, but he was reluctant to do that. It was a steep little fire road that was cleared, but still it was narrow. So anyway, I didn't really have enough fire hose for my water trailer to get down there, so I asked if I could borrow some fire hose, which Jesse was fine with having happen. So Wakar got in the back of my truck. We backed the water trailer down the fire road so that we could always pull it forward. Got as close as we felt like we needed to, ran maybe 150 feet of fire hose and ran the pump and put the fire out. And Wakar started with the hose from kind of up on a hill, and directing water at the fire. And I came down and just grabbed the hose and went down right to the fire to, kind of more effectively use the water and put it out. And after we'd gotten it out, we kind of dug around a little bit to make sure everything looked pretty out, but there were root balls that were still smoking. And who knows, maybe it would start up again. We rolled everything up, drove back up the hill, and Jesse had been assigned to kind of go through the neighborhood, make sure everything was okay. And I helped out with that by going down a steep road to the Jensen's, past the Quintons, that Jesse had been advised not to go down with the engine because it's just so steep and rough. So I went down, made sure all the fires were out, turned around, came back up the hill, drove to my place, and as I'm getting to my place to meet with everybody, there is a wall of fire coming up from the north side of the ridge. Did not look good. The flames were like 5 to 10 feet high, and it was just coming right along the edge of my property. I talked to Jesse about it, and we were all looking at it, and Jesse said that Chief Getz had just let us know that there were 2 hand crews and 3 engines coming up the hill. As I stood there, a captain arrived, CAL FIRE captain, and we're looking down the road to a storage area that I had. And the flames were about to engulf it. And man, I wanted just to jump up and run down there and put the fire out. And I felt like I couldn't because it was too big. And he looked at me. He must have read my mind. He just said, "Theo, I can't let you go down there." I said, "I know, but I really want to." He said, "It's just too dangerous," which it was. As we're standing there was an explosion. Turns out I had 4 wheels with tires on the wheels that were in a old water tank, steel water tank that I'd cut a door in. The fire was so hot that the air in the tire, as it expanded, blew up. And as we're standing there, we looked at each other, and I told him what I thought it was, and then 2 more blew up as we were standing there. Well, shortly after that, another chief arrived. They started talking. They were coming up with a plan. I was standing there kind of looking like, what do I do now? And I'd been up now for hours and hours and hours. So I was kind of a little bit out of it probably as well. Well, the hand crews came, the engines came, and the chiefs decided they were going to back burn along the road to make sure that the fire didn't jump the road and start burning people's houses down that could be saved. And so from about where we were standing, they started burning the edge of the road so that fire would burn to the fire. And once the fire that was coming across the ridge got to where the area that had already been burned, it would stop. I asked the chief what he wanted me to do. He said, Theo, just get in your truck with water trailer, and just head for home. Take a break. Sounded like a good plan. So I fell in behind the engines, which were just creeping up the road, following the men that were starting the fire on the ground. And each engine had a guy out in front of it that was carrying a hose so that they could make sure the edge of the forest right by the road after it had burned was out. It was a good backburn operation, but I can tell you it was so smoky and so intense, it was really like being in a war. So after quite a while of driving up the road, finally I got to my driveway and could get up the hill and park my truck. And as I did, I get out and I notice there's a fire that's jumped the road at the bottom part of my orchard. So I get out of my truck and grab a shovel and start walking that way. And as I do, 3 CAL FIRE firefighters step into the trail in front of me to go deal with that fire. And I just breathed a sigh of relief and thought, great, these guys are going to handle it. And they did. As that was happening, an engine pulled up into my driveway and did so in order to reel out some hose so that they could douse this fire that had started with water. And as I was standing there, I talked to the engineer that was at the back running the pump, asked him if he needed more water. He said, that'd be great. And so I set up my water system so that the hydrant that I had down on the road could fill the tank after they were done doing what they were doing. And at that point, I went into the house and laid down and let them deal with fire. I felt like I was safe having that many firefighters from CAL FIRE up there to deal with things. We'll leave the story there. Thanks for joining. Have a good rest of your day or evening.